everyone, welcome back to the show once again. Today we're going to talk about another common failure associated with the 2.0, 2.3, and the 2.5 liter Duratec engines. Now these engines are used in the Ford Focus, Fusion, and Escape 2006 through 2012. Some models even took it to 2017 because generally they're so reliable. Now there's one common failure associated with these engines, and that is the thermostat likes to stick open. Now once it sticks open, you're never really going to notice it, but the PCM will. And it's going to set a DTC and a check engine light in your cluster. Now the code that you're going to see is a P0125, or more commonly, a P0128. And the reason why the PCM is monitoring that thermostat and its operation is it needs it to get the engine fully hot so it can go into closed loop operation. It all comes back to the emissions levels and getting the emission levels down as soon as possible. Now this thermostat is just buried in there. It looks like it's impossible to do, especially from the top of the engine, without pulling major components off. Believe me, you'd be a little smarter than the car and you can actually get it off and get it back on nice, clean, neat, even torque it down while everything is in place. I'm going to show you how.
Alright, let's go ahead and start draining the coolant. Now in order to do so, what you want to do is pull this air dam right here off. So just look around, there's a couple push pins, stuff like that, some what looks like 7mm screws all the way around, and then this whole thing will drop down and we'll have access to the radiator drain over here on the driver's side. Okay, once the air dam is out of the way, we can go ahead and start draining the radiator. Now the drain cock for it is on the driver's side right here. You see it right here, it's really easy to spot. So it has a 19mm hex on here for a socket. You can use a pliers, whatever you have on hand, so just turn it out and we'll start draining the radiator out. Now of course we're working on a cool engine, so there's no need to depressurize the system. Start draining it and then we'll go up top and we'll pull the radiator cap off once the pressure starts coming out down here. And we'll allow it to drain a little bit faster that way. Okay, well that's all draining out on there. Let's go underneath the vehicle here by the fan. And we're going to come over to the connections right here. And we're going to disconnect the connections. There's two retainers right here. And that connector, get those out and pull the connector off. Get it to the side. And then there's an 8mm bolt right there. And over here. And then this whole radiator fan should drop out of here. Okay, with the fan shroud out of the way, we have a little bit more room to get in here and work at pulling that thermostat out. Now, where is the thermostat? Well, it's buried. It's buried big time on these. It's right next to the power steering reservoir under the intake. Yes, engineering genius right here. So you can see a couple of the bolt heads from up top here, okay? And you'll be able to line up your ratchet. But let me pull you down inside of here so I give you a better view since I have the camera here. So right here is the two hoses that go to that thermostat housing we're changing out on there. So you have your main radiator hose there and then your bypass right here. And you can get to that one bolt right there, top left, and then there's two more on this side. You can see them right there. And that's all that holds it to the block. Okay, with the 3 bolts out of there, we can crack the housing loose from the block, and it's going to flood the floor with coolant, so be ready. Now, what I'm doing is I pulled the extension hose off from the housing there. There's a section of it right there, the accordion type hose. Separated that, but I left the main hose on there, okay? And what we're going to do to avoid pulling the power steering pump, belt, and everything else, an AC compressor, is we're going to take the housing, that little section of hose, and the lower radiator hose, which attaches down there. It's nice and easy to get to. We're going to take all that off together. We're going to bring it over to the bench. Okay, this is the way to really do this and do it right. We have the new thermostat here from Motorcraft. It has a housing, O-ring, and of course our new thermostat inside. You can see it matches the old one right here. So we're gonna lay them just like so, right next to each other, and we're gonna go proceed to transfer the hoses over one at a time. And we're gonna put them in the exact same location, both the hose and the clamp. And that's important because you want access to this bolt so you can bolt it in. So you need these tangs and these clamps out of the way. So let's go ahead and mark the hose to the housing relationship on here. And you can just transfer that over. So we're simply gonna do that right here. Now, right here on the housing, there's a little mark right here. It's molded in each one of the housings in the exact same location. That's the factory location for aligning the hoses when they build them at the factory here. And then there's one right here too. So that arrow in reality should be pointing right at that one. So that's how they line them up at the factory. Perfect. This clamp already has set into the hose, so we're just going to make our new mark, aligning up with that, and same thing over here. And we'll match that relationship on the new one. Let's get as close as possible so our angles of attack on the hoses there are just about perfect. So let that dry for a second, and we can proceed to start pulling the clamp off. Now the clamp location does not matter because we're going to be matching it up with the indent in the hose. So you don't need to mark that, just the hose to the housing. So let's go ahead and take these off. It's pretty much dry by now. And we'll just work on getting the clamp back and out of the way. Kind of compress it, move it around a little bit, and then wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And we'll get it past the tip here of the housing. At that point, it's best to just grab this part and kind of twist them to break the bond on here. Now there are other items out there like radiator hose picks like this. They're designed to get underneath here and move around a little bit and break that bond. It depends how bad it's stuck on there. So we'll just take it. And a little bit of this and that, and it comes right off. It's always better to do it that way than use like let's say a channel locks on there to break the bond because you could damage the hose. So at this point we're nice and loose, so we'll just take it off in a twisting motion. Ooh, there we go. We got it off. Let's put it off to the side, and let's concentrate on the small one here. Same exact thing. We're going to pull the clamp off back a couple inches. We're going to leave it there. Whoa! These do have a lock on them from the factory there. So this one, same thing. You want to grab it and twist both sides and break that bond on there. Okay. Now let's get rid of the old thermostat housing there. Now on the inside of the side we're putting back onto there, you just want to clean it out with the rag while it's still wet and get any kind of debris out of there, okay? Corrosion, scale. Same thing over here. This one was pretty darn clean actually. I'm not sure what the mileage is in this one, but the cooling system is really clean on it. So this one's nice and clean. Now going back in, the only thing you want to lubricate this with is either water or coolant. You can use coolant because it has a lubricity effect to it and help you get it on there just right without tweaking the hose. So we're going to get a little bit of coolant and wipe it around each one of these hoses. Okay. Now let's go ahead and do the small hose first on here, and we'll get it set. Boom, right there. Leave it lined up on there, okay? So at this point, you want to match the grooves. You can see the grooves right here with the clamp. So we're going to get our pliers, and we're going to get it back in that same exact location. And believe me, this is very important when they're have these impressions in them like this after so many miles. See right there, we need to go right there, and it'll match it all the way around. If you don't do this and follow these impressions in here, these old impressions, you're gonna have leaks. So it's just something to be aware of. That's why it's so important doing a bench. It's the best way to do the bench here. So we're good to go. Let's go on to the upper here. And it's right about there for that mark on there and that. Again, especially on this one, you want to align it. And you want to look all the way around the hose too once you have it set, because it can get cocked in there on one side and look good on the other side. So let's get this passed. We're still lined up right there. Okay, so we look good, but you can see this side of it, like I said, we're not so good. We're close, so we just need to adjust it a little bit. All right, there it is. It's set absolutely perfect all the way around. It's matching the old grooves on there. Now imagine doing that while it's on the vehicle. It's just not going to happen. So that's why I say this way is the best method for these, because they are so buried. Let's go over to the vehicle and bolt this thing up to the inside of the engine block there. Okay, before we actually install that housing, you want to take a look at your block and make sure it's nice and clean wherever the gasket is going to seal against it right there. So give it a quick look and quick cleaning, and we can snake that hose up and through here, back up to it, and start bolting it up on there. Now let's give you a general overview of how to get this back in there, because I cannot film and put it in at the same time. It's just too tight in here. So let's bring it down in here and give you an idea of what I did here. Now, we built the hose and thermostat assembly in the bench. So we took that and we snaked it right back up and through here, over and in place right here. Now, as you may notice, the lower radiator hose is connected to the radiator down there. And what that's doing is it's giving us support, but the clamp is not on there where it won't move. So you can move it back and forth, side to side, and it'll support the whole assembly while we get these bolts started. Now, when you're putting these bolts in, you want to use the extension and the socket only in your hands. So we get them threaded in by hand at first, and we don't cross thread anything because it's very easy to cross thread in this tight area on here. So that top right bolt right there, you see that one? You want to get that one started first. It's the easiest one to see up and through the top of the intake, and of course the easiest one to get going in there nice and straight, and that'll support and align the whole assembly. Then you're going to go to that bottom right one right there, and we're going to move the housing over just a little bit, whatever you got to do just to align it, and that will align the whole housing at this point. And again, that one's really easy to get to. The last one you want to start threading in is this top left one right here, and because you have all these clamps in the way and it's going to be a little cocked in there, it might be like this or like this, you want to put this one in last. The other two will align it, and this one will finish it out on here. So move the hose as needed with your hand. Of course, leave it connected over there with the clamps, and make it flat against the block, and then you can start screwing that in. Now, a lot of these are hard to get to. The two on the right on the Focus 2.0 is actually not too bad. You can do it by hand with the extension here. But for that top left one, you may want to use something like this, a magnetic retriever with the bolt. Put it on the end of it, okay? Got a socket on there right now. And you put it into there, and you start turning it a little bit even to get that thing started. And then once it's started, we can go in with the extension and the socket itself and feel for it. Okay, we're good. And then we can proceed with the ratchet here. Now, once everything looks good to go, okay, we're definitely threading in right. You go ahead and you snug all these down, okay, just jump around, snug them down, and then we're going to torque them to 89 inch-pounds. And then once you're done torquing them, you want to go through and torque them all over again, just because the gasket on there does tend to settle. And that will complete installation to the block. All right, with the thermostat housing on there, it's all bolted up right and tight. Just go ahead and start reassembling the rest of the items that you took off earlier, like the bypass hose right here, you know, fan shroud and fans. Don't forget the lower radiator hose clamp there. and just reassemble anything you took off to gain access. And then we'll come back here at the end and I'll show you exactly how to bleed all the air out of the system here. Now this has a reverse cooling system, so if we don't bleed it correctly, we're going to have overheat codes next. So it's kind of funny. You brought the car in for insufficient coolant temp codes, and we're going to leave with temperature too high and overheating codes because air is trapped in there. So we'll come back at the end and show you how to do it right. Alright, now once everything is back together, it's right and tight. We have our drain cock down there tightened back up, and our hose is back on. We are ready to fill and bleed the cooling system. Now, like I was saying earlier, this is a reverse cooling system, so it's really easy to get air trapped in there, and of course air trapped behind the thermostat. It's not going to open, and it's going to overheat the engine. So we want to get coolant on both sides of the thermostat. Now, there's a couple different methods to that, and the best way is something like this, a U-View airlift cooling system refiller tool. Basically what it does is it puts the whole cooling system into a vacuum with shop air and the Venturi effect as it goes past here, okay? And we're going to put it into a vacuum. And you'll be able to watch the vacuum on here. Not only that, once a vacuum is achieved, you'll be able to watch it and make sure the vacuum does not drop. So you know there's no leaks before you ever go any further with refilling with coolant. It's a great little tool. I'll link to it down below. The new tool I linked to down below is actually upgraded. You don't need to hold the button on there to do it. So that's the best way to do it. And I have a whole video on how to properly use this tool. It applies to any vehicle you want to use it on. Now, if you don't want to go out and buy that tool, on the 2.0 liter here, there is no way to, there is no bleeder valve on the engine, okay? But on the 2.3 liter and 2.5 liter, you'll notice back here by the coolant housing here, there's another housing over here for all these hoses that come in new, right down in here. You'll notice back towards the back, there is this bleeder nipple right here, okay? And on the top it has a slot in it for a flathead screwdriver. So you just turn it out like a quarter turn, it pops up out of there. And the idea is this is the highest point back here, and we can allow it to bleed air out of here. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll fill our coolant bottle or radiator neck, okay, with coolant. Whoa. We'll fill our degas bottle or radiator coolant neck with coolant. We'll keep filling it with a funnel. And then back here, eventually, you'll see it start bubbling out of here. Air, bubbles, and then straight coolant. Now, once there's straight coolant coming out of there, you just simply tighten it back up, and the system is basically bled. You're still going to have issues, though, believe me. That's why I use the vacuum fill tool on these, because they are so finicky. But there's also another procedure once the engine started, thermostat opens, to push that air out of the heater core and the engine, okay? And I have a video for that too, believe it or not, so I'll link to that down below. And that'll help you refill this thing correctly so there's no problems afterwards. Now, because I know you guys are curious, I'll just go ahead and show you the procedure to use this vacuum fill tool on this engine. So what you want to do is have your tool onto the filler neck here, no adapters, okay? No adapters that come in the kit, don't use them. And we're going to put it all the way on there. We're going to tighten this until it's nice and tight in the neck there, just tight enough to hold it in place. Then, because this 2.0 liter we're filling from the radiator here, it does have a bleed off to the recovery tank right here. See this hose right here? So what you want to do is take that off of there, as you see, and then the side here, use like a rubber cap, like a vacuum cap, just to cap it off, because it will bleed vacuum out that port on there, just for the fill procedure here. We'll assemble all this tool right here, just kind of snaps into the Venturi effect right here, apparatus, and then you simply connect shop air up to it. Okay, so at this point our valve is closed. This is the valve That goes down to the coolant. We don't need that just yet. So we're gonna concentrate on pulling a vacuum on the system, and then we're gonna watch it. Especially on these ones. You wanna pull a vacuum once it achieves max vacuum. Okay, you'll be able to watch on the gauge. You wanna let it sit there and pull that max vacuum for 5 to 10 minutes on these to really get all the air out of there so we can fill those vacuum voids with coolant. So let's go ahead and start it. Now because we got a hold for 10 minutes, I'm just gonna use a vice grips on here, real gentle, and that'll hold the valve down for us. See right there, we're in the green, right there, so we're good to go. We've achieved max vacuum. So go ahead and just let it pull that vacuum for 5 to 10 minutes. Now after a while, after 2 minutes or so, you may want to pull that off of there, make sure everything's shut, and then watch the gauge on here, make sure it does not bleed up. It should not bleed up. Because if there is a leak in the cooling system and we're bleeding vacuum, there's no point in going further with the vacuum filling. So we'll just watch it. We're holding right at 27, 26. It's not moving at all. We're nice and sealed. So let's go ahead and continue 5 to 10 minutes, get it fully evacuated, and then we'll start filling it up. Now at this point we pulled vacuum for 10 minutes or so. We're holding right there, 26, 27, and we're good to go. You can get rid of the air line if you want and all that. We're gonna concentrate on this hose right here, which you put down into your coolant jug, a 50-50 mix, and then we're simply going to open the valve on here. You wanna make sure the other end of this line is always in the coolant mix down in there. And a lot of times I'll open this valve, I'll suck coolant up into this point, especially in these engines, they're so sensitive. Fill this whole thing with coolant, and then I'll suck the system down for another 30 seconds or so to purge the air. At this point, just hold it up. Make sure we're definitely down the coolant, and you turn the valve. And this thing will fill all the way until the very end there. It'll fill it full to the top of the radiator neck. Just open it, and you'll see it go down. So it's at 0. Or about 5 inches of vacuum, you're good to go. Now lucky for you guys, the little 4 cylinders don't take much, so this is like 1.5 gallons. You can see us down to about 5 inches of vacuum already, so we're good to go at that point. So if you're wondering how much coolant you need, just get 1 gallon of the concentrate gold, and of course you'll 50-50 it after that with water. Distilled water, of course, is best. And you'll have plenty for your project here. So at this point, let's go ahead and get this out of here. Don't need any of this anymore. Don't need this piece anymore. Out of the way, out of the way. And then we'll simply loosen this piece on here so we can pull it off the neck. Like so, and then just open your valve on here, and that'll drain the coolant back down to your jug and clear the line. Let's go ahead and pull this cap off of here, your vacuum cap, if you have the 2.0 that has the radiator like this. I think the 2.3 does in a lot of the vehicles too. Fits extra tight. There we go. We'll push our recovery line back on. So that's complete. Now what I'll do, because I stopped it a bit early, use a funnel like this, fits in there perfect, and we'll just top it off, to the top in there. There we go. We can go ahead and start the engine. All right, we got it started up. And our coolant is right there.
So in reality, right now this should be filled frontwards and backwards in there. So we can go ahead and put the cap back onto here. And we'll let the engine heat up, and we'll check heat in the cabin, and then we'll drive it and check for an overheat condition and make sure we're good to go. So let's go ahead and put this cap back on. And it'll be all sealed up then. Let it heat up, let it pressurize, and we'll check the temps.